you think, or? Okay. Uh, Hello, everyone. My name's John, John Burke. I'm out of Wausau, and from the Wausau Nordic Ski Club. And I guess we're going to talk about cross-country skiing today as a healthy lifestyle activity that we can all participate in. And one of the things that, and so I brought a bunch of the gear that we use, and figured we'd talk about places that you can go skiing, places you can get equipment, and maybe what you should wear, that sort of stuff, and what to expect when you get out there. And I didn't know if there was anything else that you guys might want to touch on, or we can kind of go. Have any of you cross country skied before? Or okay, so most of you have been out there, so you got a little feel for what it is. I guess probably for starters, most of the time, or there's really two techniques of cross country skiing. Most of us probably are familiar with the classic skiing, which is kind of striding in nice little tracks, and and that's really the way I would tell folks who are beginners, especially adults, to get into is using the classic skis, or start out with classic skis. And then there's another technique that's called skating, which is more of a pushing off from side to side motion, and it does take different equipment for each of them. But some people like skating because it's maybe a little faster, or they just it's kind of the cool way to ski or something like that. If you watch World Cup, and you watch those guys freestyle ski, it's pretty impressive. Some of us don't do that kind of skiing, but but anyway, so just kind of looking at the basics of equipment, and I don't know how many of you realize really how a classic ski works, but generally speaking, on your skis, there's a ride zone on the front and back, and in the middle there's a kick zone. And this is where you get your propulsion for the forward kick. So what ends up happening is, when your weight is balanced on both sides, it's kind of, you can see there's kind of an arch there, and that means that's where you're just gliding on the tips and the tails. But when you step down on it and get ready to kick, it pushes down into the snow, and on this particular ski there's what we call fish scales, and that digs into the snow and gives you that forward push. So that's the whole concept with a classic ski. And like I said, that one I'm using, that one has fish scales. Your top skiers, your advanced skiers, things like that will use kick wax on their skis. I don't have anything with the kick wax type. But then a new kind that's come out here recently is what we call skin skis. And they're probably on the more higher end skis right now, but they're starting to come down to lower levels. And I think this is going to become...
Can I just interrupt for a moment?
Yep.
Can you just turn the camera? Because right now I'm seeing the back wall more than I'm seeing you and the equipment. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Scared me there for a second. But I see this as becoming something that's a little bit more, people might start liking a little bit more than even the fish scales, because they seem to work much better in a lot of different kinds of temperature conditions. A lot of people worry about waxing. They don't like the idea of waxing because it's complicated and things like that. And the nice thing about skiing nowadays, you can still pull out the hot iron and go into all kinds of different setups to get the right wax of the day and things like that. But for the average skier, or what I call a citizen skier, they've really made things a lot easier with things like liquids that can be just rubbed in and polished a little bit. And that, for the average skier, that's more than enough. I mean, there are a lot of people who don't even wax their skis and go out, but you'll find it probably a little more enjoyable if you do. You just get a little bit better glide. I mean, the whole idea is that when you do your kick, you kind of get some glide, and you do another kick, you get some glide, and that's where the benefit, of having a little bit better wax ski is just extending that glide phase as much as possible. And then the other ski that we have here, this is what we call a skate ski, and they look the same for the most part, but what you'll see with these is that they're a little bit flatter. They don't have this one has probably as much arch, but a lot of them don't have as much arch. And the whole idea is when you're pushing off, is you're pushing off to the side versus like this when you're kicking. So it's more of a, almost like your ice skating type motion. And it takes a little bit to kind of get used to this. It's not something that's out of the box, real easy to do, at least for most people. Kids seem to pick it up fast. Any kids that have roller skied or rollerbladed, ice skated, hockey players, things like that, they'll pick it up real fast. But adults usually have a little bit more difficult time, and one of the reasons is a lot of it depends upon balance, and you kind of need to get way out over your ski, and from side to side, you have to get, just exactly over the top of it to get the good glide. And most people want to stay in the middle because they don't want to fall, and and but it's something that you get used to, but you figure out. But
does it hold the boot differently? Because like it seems like with a skate ski, your heel would be
Yep.
pushing out.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. One of the things nowadays too is, I should have pointed out, there's like different kinds of bindings, this one here is what we call, it's a solid center there, and actually it's a recreational type binding. It's just a step in that you just step into that, and it attaches there. But what ends up happening, and this is a boot that's made to fit like that sort of a binding, and let me see if I can just, when you step into it, it's hard to do when you're not on it. There it goes. And what you see here, to your point, with a skate ski or with a classic ski, that ridge down the middle really helps with the ankle support, stability. In the old days, we just had the 3-pin bindings on the front, and your heels would go way off to the side. The ski wouldn't follow, but your heel would. These things, you feel, they're almost like a downhill ski in how they hold the ski, and you feel a lot more stable on it. And I think from a recreational standpoint, these are much, much nicer to deal with. You won't see 3 pins anymore, they're gone. All your bindings either kind of look like that one or the other one here. It's got a similar type design, except the ridge is 2 different ridges down the side. And this here is a skate boot, and it has the 2 ridges built in there. And that's what it's basically what it is. It's manufacturers. There's basically 2 competing types of bindings out there, and for whatever reason, this is becoming the more popular one. So a lot of people with these are getting a little bit miffed because it's like you can't find boots for it anymore, But there's still enough out there, and I think again on the Citizen level of equipment things, it's it's pretty available both ways. But and this one is more of a. I'll just kind of put this one in here. It's got more. It's got a. And this is the way more the upper end skis or things work, is they got the where you have to snap it in yourself. But and the one thing with the skate that you notice here, this is the classic boot. This is the skate boot. The big difference here is there's not a lot of ankle support in the same way that there is here. And the reason for that is you're really pushing. You want a stiff ankle and be able to push through that. And this one, you get more of a motion like that, so you don't want a big cuff around there or anything like that. And so that's really kind of the things with skis. Now, again, for one of the things I always get worried about with people who are maybe looking to get in the sport or new to the sport is they go to a place like 9 Mile Forest up in Wausau and they see all these people in spandex and great equipment zipping around and all that kind of stuff. And it can be a little bit of a turnoff, I think, to some people. Go, I can't do that, And the thing is, you really don't have to. I think, you get on a classic ski and you bop around, for an hour or so, and you get a great workout. You don't have to, like, don all the gear and look right and all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's a lot of people out there in blue jeans and winter coats and things like that, and I always want to make sure people feel comfortable. I see the same thing in biking, where people have to have the, $2,000, $3,000 bikes and all the spandex and things like that. And when getting on a bike is just as good without all that stuff. You might not be as fast, you might not be as efficient, but it still can be as enjoyable. And the same thing is true with cross-country skiing, in that it doesn't take a lot to do it. So one of the things is you look at some of this equipment, stuff like my boots or something like that, they're probably cost a little bit more than what a lot of people would necessarily need. You know, you can go to shops and find good citizen packages for, you know, a few $100 and not feel like you're breaking the bank. It's a lot better than downhill, let me tell you. You know, 'cause downhill, you know, you don't start getting into that sport until you got 4 figures, and then you go from there. You know, by the time you get done with skis and boots and whatnot, and poles and goggles. There is with poles too, there is a little difference in classic and skate, and it's mostly height. This would be like a good skate pole for me, where a classic pole would be about shoulder height. And nowadays too, they come with these real fancy grips, which makes it a lot easier to wear properly. A lot of people in the when they just had a loop, most people didn't know how to really put their hand through that and get it to hold right. But with these, you don't have to worry about it. But they're nice. They fit under a pretty good sized glove. You know, you can get bigger ones, smaller ones. But they're and this is like a carbon, but you know, you can get like aluminum poles and things that are, you know, much more cost effective as well. And you know, for a real power skier, you know, they want the higher end poles because there's more flex when they really push on it. But again, for a citizen skier, they don't get that kind of flex in there. They're not getting quite that much power. And so, you know, you don't necessarily need the $300 poles that they'd like to sell you. And I'll say one thing about the shops too. They won't sell you. Most of the guys I know want to sell you what's going to work for you and what's appropriate for you. They're not pushing you up the ladder all the time. There's some of us who want to go up the ladder higher, but they're saying, no, you really shouldn't, you know. And it's true, because there's, you know, like you can get some high-end skis, and they can be a little more squirrely because they're meant to be performance skis, they're meant to go fast, but then they're a little more unstable. Where a recreational ski is a little bit different. It's meant to be a little bit more stable to give you more comfort and feeling like you're not going to be falling down on every little corner and things. The other thing I would say, if you haven't skied in quite a few years, the ski trails have changed quite a bit over the years. It used to be when we were just doing classic skiing, there was you had 2 tracks through a woods, and they cut pretty close, you know, to the trees and things like that. And it always seemed like whenever you went down a hill, there was a tree right here with a sharp corner. And most of the places now, because of skating, really, the trails are wider. They're generally about 10, 12, 15 feet wide, so that it can accommodate the skating skier, maybe 2. And it makes it much easier going into these curves. You got more forgiveness as you go down the hill and kind of go out to the side and things like that. And I think the other thing too is a lot of the ski areas have pretty good maps, and they tell you pretty, they try to make it pretty clear where the easy trails are and where the hard trails are. And there's no reason to go on a hard trail if you're not comfortable with it. And most of the easy trails, really when they talk about difference between easy and hard and difficult, whatever, it's the hills. And that can be uphill or downhill, but mostly downhill, because that's where you start to freak out if if you're looking straight down. And I was just at a place where they had a hill that they called the Clavicle Hill, because everybody would come down the hill and fall down and break their clavicle. And so the facility reversed the course so that they don't go down that direction, because it basically was almost straight down. And there's a few hills out there in the ski world that are pretty exciting that way, but as you get older, you kind of try to stay away from those. You know, not young like we used to be, but so anyway, so that's kind of the foot gear and the ski gear that you have. I don't know if anybody else had any questions. Go ahead.
Well, do the skate skiers use the same paths as the classic skiers, even though there's those little?
Okay, generally speaking, what you have is you got they'll put a set of tracks off to the side, and then you have a kind of a flat groomed area for the skate skis.
Okay.
So most of the time, you know, the classic skiers will stay in the classic lanes, and the skate skiers will stay in the skate lanes. But you know, if you're on skate skis and you're going downhill, you can hop in the tracks and go downhill. Same with the classic skis, when you want to go up the hill, sometimes you have to do what they call a herringboning. I don't know if you're familiar with that term, but you're basically walking like a duck up a hill. And, you know, that's better doing it outside the tracks because there's a little bit more to grab onto and you're not messing up the nice pretty track that somebody laid there early in the morning. So yeah, so they're generally accommodate both.
And if you're in the classic skis and going down that hill, are you kind of at the mercy of those slots that your skis are in when it comes to the turn?
In a way, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's, and this is where, you know, one of the things I suggest for skiing, it's actually one of the ways I learned a lot about skiing, was following somebody down the hill. Because one of the things that you realize is that there's weight shifts and things like that that are going on that help you get around that curve. So for example, when you're going down that hill and all of a sudden it starts to turn this way, you know, you're putting a little bit more of your weight on that outside ski to kind of anchor it in there. And this one is kind of more feathering around the corner and helping you steer. Those are just little techniques that you end up picking up. Which, by the way, I might as well make an advertisement as long as I'm here. Speaking of learning this type of thing, the Wausau Nordic Ski Club, not this year so far, but on Tuesday nights in January at 9 Mile Forest, we host adult ski lessons, and they're free. So people come, if they don't have equipment, the county lets you use the rental fleet. You know, we check out based on first come, first serve. There's no trail pass, and the instruction's all free. You know, it's provided by our club members. We break up into groups of about, you know, 8, 10 people, and go out, and we try to stratify them based on their comfort level and what they've done before. And so you're generally going to be with a group of people that are similar to you in terms of experience. But we've had really, really good success with that, getting people out on skis. We'll get as many as 100 people on a night. We'll have a dozen instructors or so out there taking people around. It gets a little crowded sometimes, because we do this at night, and we have a lighted ski trail up there. So there's about 6 or 8K of trail that's lit that we can hold these lessons on, and it works out really, really nice. We have a good time with it, and get to see a lot of new faces into the sport that way. So,
Just January?
just January. So Tuesday nights, January. Now this year we don't have snow up there yet. This has been a real disappointing year, as you can imagine, and it's pretty much all across the state. There's not a lot of areas right now that have a lot of snow, and so our ski season is being severely impacted. So 9 Mile isn't open, so we haven't been able to offer the lessons yet this year. But we get a snowstorm, come on up, you know. And because of that, we've already scheduled another one into February. But right now, if you look at the long-term forecast, it's not looking real good. So the next thing we're trying to do is get snowmaking up there, and that would really be awesome. So as I always say, I'm trying to get the buzz going to kind of get people excited about it, so that we can kind of makes the fundraising easier, and hopefully the approvals at the county board level and things like that. So, yeah, we'll work on it. But anyway, so that's some of the equipment. As far as like places to go skiing, I don't know around here if you've got places. Somebody had told me that, you know, sometimes people ski out at the ridges. I don't know if they do anything anymore, but of course it has to have snow. But I would, you know, one of the things I would suggest really is, you know, if you can find a nice, well-maintained ski trail system that has good grooming, it really makes your ski, especially if it's an introductory type thing, a lot nicer, because you're not worrying so much about how the terrain is under your feet. It's a lot smoother. It's grooved nicely. It's, you know, and like I say, you'll enjoy the experience better. So it's worth maybe sometimes a drive to go to a place like that. You know, around here, probably the two main areas that I can suggest is 9 Mile Forest, obviously, in Wausau. I'm prejudiced and biased, so you know, you can expect that. But then Iola Winter Sports Club also offers a really nice trail system. It's a very well-maintained system. They have the same issues we do with snow, so sometimes they have it, sometimes we have it, so we'll go back and forth. So those are two. They have chalets there, so you know, with open hours and things like that, so you can go in and change your boots inside and leave your gear there and go out and ski and come back. And you know, you don't feel like you're out in the middle of the woods with no support or anything like that. I don't know about Iola, but 9 Mile does have ski rental available. So if you're in need of gear, you know, you can get your boots, poles, and your skis right there. And again, that's kind of a nice way to, you know, if you don't want to buy the gear, don't know really if you like the sport or not, that's a good way to kind of get into it, is to maybe rent some. And it's also a good place to talk to people, you know. If you go to a place like that, you're more likely going to bump into people. And most cross-country skiers I know are more than willing to provide advice. You know, they'll see you on the trail that you're stopped at a map or something like that. They're going to help you get around and things like that. We try to be friendly to strangers and whatnot. So, but those would be two majors. Standing Rock Park also has some skiing there. In fact, they make a little snow. They got a little snow loop, I guess. I haven't actually been on that part of it. I've been on some other parts of their trail system. Rib Lake has another set of trails up there. It's a little more what I would call rustic, but they're good trails. I mean, things, but better like hills though if you want that one. But so those would be some of the ones maybe in the closer area. I think Marshfield also at their school forest. I don't know the ability to get on to that property, but my understanding is someone's been grooming that over the years, and it's got a small little trail system that might be available. Again, like I said, I'd probably, especially if you're just kind of getting into it, kind of look for a ski center and try that out. And then you can venture off into the more remote stuff when you get comfortable with the sport and that sort of thing. The other thing that I was just going to talk a little bit about is kind of the clothing that you wear and things. And for a recreational skier, you know, again, see people in blue jeans, winter coats, big hats, and you know, whatever. By and large, most people when they go out by them, you know, for the first time or whatever, they're going to overdress. It doesn't take, you know, once you get out and start moving around, you'll generate a lot of heat. It's amazing how warm you get, and so you kind of have to find a balance between staying warm and not overheating type thing. And it's not. And I personally, I err on the side of being warm because you can always take layers off, and then you can kind of learn from there what works for you, what doesn't. One of the things that you know, like, and then as you get into it, you know, you can start looking at things like specific ski gloves, and you know, like these are, I mean, they're real thin. I mean, there's a little bit of a, I like windbreaking material. It's kind of nice when you're going down a hill or something like that. And you know, they have maybe a little windbreaking material on the back, but this is just something to hold the pole. It's not really important, but your hands stay plenty warm and something like that if you're using the motion going at a reasonable pace. You know, you don't have to go that fast or anything like that. And there's gloves that come in light, heavy, whatever, but generally speaking, this is going to work pretty well for you to fit to the grips, but you can wear mittens. The ones I don't like are like the knit mittens, because they have a tendency when you fall down or something get real wet and then your hands get cold. So I try to stick with something that's got maybe some along the lines of like a nylon shell or something like that. It seems to work a little bit better. One of the other things, and I was telling somebody this earlier, this is probably one of the best inventions in cross-country skiing in a long time, but it's the buff. And it's not real thick. I mean, this is just a thin little layer here, but you put it on over your neck, you know, and it can sit like that where it's just keeps your neck warm. But if it's really cold out, you can pull it up over your ears and keep your, you know, put a hat over the top of it, keep your ears warm. And if it's really cold, you can get this thing up over your face. You know, so there's a lot of, this thing's got a lot of flexibility, but it really, really makes a difference in terms of keeping you warm. Because otherwise your neck's kind of exposed, and that's where some people also use things like Vaseline, or there's a cream called Warm Skin that you can put on your face, which kind of, if nothing else, it helps keep you from getting all windburned and chafed, you know. But it also does help to, you know, ward off a little bit of frostbite if it's really cold. Again, for a recreational skier, as far as cold is concerned, you know, skiers go out to, you know, 10 below, 20 below. I personally, you know, I kind of maybe cut off around 5 to 10 below. But the one thing you have to be careful with is you don't want to get caught out in the cold in that kind of condition. So, you know, personally, I would like to see other skiers there when I'm out there, and you know, if you're near where there's cell coverage, take a cell phone with you, and you know, not over ski your ability. You know, stay closer to the chalet and things in case something would happen. Even an equipment break, you know, that you can walk back and not freeze to death. You know, but you know, if it's 10 degrees and over, you know, you're generally not going to have issues. It's pretty comfortable. Wind can be a little bit of a downer sometimes, but it's mostly the air temperature that you have to worry about. And so that's where like things like the warm skin and stuff like that, once you start getting below 10 degrees, kind of can help keep you from freezing up your face and so on. The other things that we typically, you know, would suggest is like for long underwear, there's something like a polypropylene type. You know, Kraft is a pretty major brand name in making what we call the base layer. And you don't need a heavy base layer, just something that kind of wicks the moisture away from the body. You know, and then you put on, usually there's a, I don't have one here, but you can put on like a, almost any kind of shirt, to be honest. But the one thing you don't want is just something that's going to hold a lot of moisture. You know, again, you want it to kind of breathe a little bit. Some people, you know, they'll wear sweaters and put on jackets and things like that. And again, for recreational outing, that's fine. As you get more into it, you know, you're going to figure out what to wear and what not to wear, and that helps. You know, and for guys, there's a thing called wind briefs. I don't have to go into all the details, but those are good to have. And I guess the other thing that you know, we can talk about a little bit is where to go to get gear. Obviously, if you want to rent gear, I don't know about the shops as much anymore. They used to be able, I know maybe someone at Marshfield knows if Sports Den still does that. I know they did at one time rent some gear. But most of the time you have to go to a ski center like in Wausau or Winter Park up near Lakeland, or Minocqua has ski rentals available. So you can get stuff there. But as far as shops are concerned, the places in the immediate area here, like I say, Sports Den in Marshfield does a pretty nice job. I think Hostel Shop still carries mostly what I would consider citizen race type stuff, possibly some racing stuff, I'm not sure. Shepherd and Schaller in Wausau is mostly a recreational type ski shop. They do a lot more downhill, but they do have a cross-country ski, pretty good inventory of stuff there for beginner and intermediate skiers. And then if you're looking for maybe something a little bit more high-end, then trip up to Rylander to Mel's up there, or Winter Park has a pro shop in there where they have pretty good inventory of gear. And then online, I kind of use, there's one place called Gear West out of Minneapolis, and they do a real nice job for people in the area here. I mean, we've done a lot through the years. There's actually 3 or 4 shops up in the Twin Cities that do nice work if you want to get to that. But those would be some of your primary outlets to get gear. And and then the other thing is, and this is a good way to get into the sport, is ski swaps. I don't know if Rapids has one. I know Stevens Point has a ski swap, usually in early November. Wausau, we always hold one the first weekend in November. Basically what that, and Marshfield I believe has one as well. I can't remember when theirs is held, but it's probably around the same time frame. But what happens is people bring in their old gear, they put it up for sale, and people come in and pick up what they want, and go up, pay for it. They split the proceeds a little bit with, like in our case, we charge a commission for, you know, helping sell the gear. But A, it's a good way to get rid of some old gear, but B, it's a good way to get some really good deals on some equipment that necessarily isn't all that used or abused. We do have a number of individuals or teams and things like that that ski in sometimes they turn over equipment at a faster rate than the average person. So it makes, there's sometimes some pretty good gear that has been used that is more than adequate for continuing use. Yeah.
So if I'm gonna buy gear not from somebody, how do I know it should work for me? Like you should have sort of showed us with the poll.
That's a good question, good question. Contrary to, used to be everybody thought was, like your ski length was based on your height, but really it's based on your weight. And the best way to get fitted for a ski is literally to stand on them. And so if you go to a ski shop, what you'll see is they'll have like maybe a granite slab, and it's perfectly level, and they'll have you, stand on, put the skis side by side and stand on them like this. And what they're looking for is how much flex you get. And when you go up on one foot, you don't want the paper to move underneath it. And then when you lift up the foot, you should be able to get coverage. So there's and it's not a, in different types of skiers have different types of flex that work for them. But for an average skier, things like that, they can fit you pretty well that way. And it's really critical with your classic skis to have what I would call a standing fitting going on, because there you want to make sure that when you stand up on that foot, that ski gets down to the ground, so you get that kick. If you don't get that, then you're just going to be kicking wind, and you don't go very far, very fast that way. And then the opposite is true. If you get one that's too short or doesn't have enough flex, well then your kick wax or your fish scales or your whatever, they're in the snow all the time, so now they're dragging. So you want, there's a balance there, but that's the way to do it. You can do it. I bought skis over the phone, giving somebody my weight, and they find somebody about the same size and fit them, and that works. But you feel much better if you actually stand on it yourself and measure it from there. So anyway, any other questions? Is there something for here?
Do they have competitions, like
runners
and stuff?
Yes, that's a good question. We have, there's it's really kind of from like the first week of January to the end of February. There's usually competitions somewhere almost every weekend. And these can range from, 10K races on up to, the Berkey is a ski marathon at 50K. And there's several 50-kilometer races in the area. You go up to Marquette, they have one. It's called the Nokamanon. That's a pretty good sized race. Badger State, we put on a 42K. With Badger State, we actually have a 10K, a 21K, a 43K, and we've got some high school and middle school races. So there's a lot. And actually, this is something too. If you from a kid's perspective, from a middle school on up through high school, there is something called the Wisconsin Nordic Ski League, which has teams. We have 3 teams in the Wausau area. One's for middle school and 2 are for the local high schools. And Iola has a team at their winter sports club for both middle school and high school. And kids can participate in a ski program or a ski racing program, and they race various places around the state. It usually concludes with a state meet up in the Cable area in February. And so what we've always thought there should be, we should be able to get a team established kind of in the Rapids Marshfield area, and there's been some attempts at it, but it takes some dedicated individuals to kind of make it happen. But if you can't find someone to do it here, send them over to Iola. They'll be happy to take you there, or Wausau too, for that matter. That gets to be a little bit of a drive, but we have people come from Marshfield to ski on in our program. So, and then the other thing with that is there are a number of youth programs that are available that are non-competitive too. So, like again at Wausau, we have something called the Snow Striders, which is elementary age kids on Sundays, and we just put them on skis and let them bomb around. We just try to, you try to let them self-teach themselves as much as possible. That's really the best way to learn on some of this stuff. I mean, we can tell them what to do, but they don't know what we're really saying. But they discover as they see what works and what doesn't work. And so, and the sooner you get them on skis, then they just become more comfortable as they go along. And and to be honest, kids really, really enjoy this. I've never seen a frowning face, you know, kids that race or ski, whatever. They really do seem to enjoy it. Once in a while they complain about the cold, but, you know, that's no big deal. So yes, there, you know, and then actually one event I would put on everybody's calendar if they could do it is it's called Book Across the Bay. It's kind of a unique event. It's up in goes from Ashland to Washburn, and if you know the geography there, there's a lake in between there, and that's what they do. They ski straight across the lake, 10K at night. It's under, you know, they got luminaries all the way along. It's a pretty cool event. We get about 3,000 people out there for that, and then there's a big party at the end. So if you want to have a good time with a lot of people, that would be a great one to do, and they do a nice job with it. You know, that one's not meant to be what I would call a high-level competition. It's more of a participation event, but it's a lot of fun, and they do nice work with that. But you know, a lot of these races too, some of them maybe kind of lean more towards the, you know, competitive skier and things, but a lot of them, you know, just people who want to go out and ski. You don't get as many people, say, as you do in a 5K run, you know, just because, well, you have to have skis and want to be out in the cold, but you know, we still get some nice turnouts at these events, and a lot of fun, you know. And those are things that I time too, you know, so I get to spend a lot of time out in the cold watching skiers come in.
Does your ski club have a website where a lot of this information
Yes.
is available?
WausaNordic.org. So WausaNordic.org. Yeah. And we have a Facebook page. Actually, the website, we do, that has most of our program information and things. The Facebook page probably has a little bit more of the current events, you know, so we'll put condition reports of what's going on out at 9 Mile or other places that we know of that, you know, where you can ski. That's been kind of a little bit of my job this year is putting reports and kind of spreading information where you can ski, because we're not skiing local, so where should I get in a car and drive for an hour and a half and have a good day of skiing.
If you're used to downhill skiing, what's the best way to get started in cross country?
You know, really, downhill skiers do pretty well with this. I would still probably suggest, you know, with classic, even though you would be able to, if you're a pretty accomplished skate skier or downhill skier, you probably know a little bit about skate skiing already, because you kind of do that to get around from place to place. And but one thing I've noticed about anybody who's downhill skiing, and I'll kind of say this about like the youth that we have that come into the high school program or whatever, if they've downhill skied before, they're not gonna have any problems with the hills. I mean, they will, they'll bomb them, you know, where someone who, you know, comes into cross-country skiing without the downhill experience, they're gonna be a lot more cautious on it. So probably the biggest difference is you have to figure out how to get to the top of the hill. You know, it's, we don't have those lifts like they do over at Granite Peak or wherever. So, so, yeah, okay. So, I don't know, is there, that's kind of, I think, what I planned on talking about. If there's anything else here I had. Yeah, I guess if anybody wanted to find out more about competitive skiing, particularly with the youth, let me know, because I can get you in contact with people who can help organize that. I'm actually part of a group called the Wisconsin Nordic Development Group, and our goal is to try and develop youth skiing, you know, across Wisconsin in more places. Right now we have about 20 clubs that operate in the state, but there's a lot of holes out there too where we don't have ski programs that, you know, could use one. And so I'm more than happy to spread the word or get people involved. We have like ways of mentoring people and coaching and running a team so that they can they don't feel like they're just jumping in cold turkey and things. So, but we'd really like to, if you have any opportunities like that, we'd be more than happy to help you. I'm trying to work with a group in Anago right now, kind of on that basis. They're trying to get some program up and running. And of course, they started with this year, which is about the worst year. So, anyway, all right. Well, I think that's probably what I have, unless anybody has more questions. Be happy to
stick around here too if anybody wants. Marshfield? No, nobody's in Marshfield. There were a couple there.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah, yeah, so, I would say, listening but not watching, so, anyway.
This is
So,
very good. Thank
yeah,
you.
so
Yes,
thank you
thank you
very
very
much.
much.
Thank you.